The problems plaguing the MBTA's Green Line extension are a lot worse than we previously thought. According to officials, the extension's rails are too narrow in about half of Union Square branch, and 80% of the Medford Tufts branch will need to be fixed. Well, it's a whopping failure in construction and communication. Governor Healey's administration is placing blame on their predecessors in the Baker administration, claiming that previous T officials knew about the problems and didn't report them. Officials say the extension is currently still safe for riders, but it'll need to go through extensive repairs, the cost of which MBTA General Manager Philip Eng promises will fall entirely on the original contractors. Well, to break this all down is former Assistant Secretary of Transportation, Chris Dempsey. Thank you so much for being with us.
Great to be with you, Crystal.
So, was this news a surprise to you?
It was a surprise, and it's unfortunate. The analogy here is you went to IKEA, you got the bookcase, and you're starting to put it together, and something just seems a little bit off. You know, the screws aren't quite lining up, but you make it work. You start putting the books on the bookshelf, and you just know that it's not going to hold. That's what happened here with the Green Line. They got it set up, they installed it, they started running trains since last year, but as they've done further testing, they've realized that the tracks are too narrow and have to be fixed.
But it was enormous cost. And also, like, couldn't you figure that out beforehand?
Yeah, and that's what's troubling here is all the way back in 2021, they did some testing on one of the rail yards in Medford that they built as part of this project, and they found that those tracks were too narrow. But instead of using that information and then testing the rest of the line, they kind of kept it isolated to just that yard. Fast forward a year and a half to November of 2022, they want to open it in about a month. They do more testing, and they find that, in fact, the rail is too narrow across the entire extension. There were 29 places that were critical safety issues. They fixed those. But the rest of the line, as you said, 50% of Union Station line and 80% of the Medford Tufts line was too narrow, and they still decided to open up the Green Line extension anyway in December. It's frustrating to those of us that are riders of the Green Line that want a system that works, and now we're going to be faced with more disruption.
Especially when you're talking about these slow zones, and then the connector, the blue line, red line connector that the T and the city and the state want to break ground on.
Yeah, that's another project, and I think it's an important one. But we need to improve our ability to execute on these projects. I think it's fair for the public to have some doubt about the MBTA's ability to really manage and implement the vision that we have for the system.
And that would mean that these slow zones will continue at least until they can figure out exactly what's going to happen next.
Yeah, so I think on the Green Line extension, they are going to bring it back to normal speed. Where the rails are now is they're too narrow to meet a construction standard, but they are okay for basic safety standards. They did bring it down to basically a walking speed for a couple days last week just to make sure they were being safe. Now that they've gone through some additional testing, it's back. But again, it's going to lead to some disruptions, whether that work happens at night or on the weekends. Riders can expect more delays.
Do you think that this is just one of many things we may see coming down the line? I mean, everyone was so excited when this extension opened and it was running, and then now we're hearing about these problems.
Yeah. I hope that this is the last we're going to hear of major structural issues. I don't think we're really going to know for another couple of years. This, as you said, is a project that is really important, not just to Somerville and Medford, but to the entire region. It's going to take a lot of cars off the road. It's going to provide new transit access to tens of thousands of Massachusetts residents. And it's the first subway line that we've opened in Massachusetts since the late 80s, early 90s. So it's been 30 years. We need to get back to a culture where we're expanding our transit system. We know that we have some of the worst congestion in the country. We have some really bad air pollution from all that traffic. Transportation is one of the most frustrating issues, along with housing, for many households. We have to be making investments. We need to do better than what we did with the Green Line extension.
Do you think there's also concern for the businesses that invested in these areas around the new Green Line, and now they're seeing that this might be an issue, you know, for many years to come?
I think that's right. I think, you know, if you're the mayor of Somerville or Medford, you're saying, wait a minute, our communities were starting to orient around these lines, and now we can't do it. I will say this about transportation. You know, transportation change can be very frustrating. It can take a very long time. On the other hand, when you build something in transportation, it usually lasts for 100 years or more. And so if we have a little bit of a rough start on this Green Line extension, but 10, 20, 30, 50 years from now, it's still working. It will be an investment that we feel will have paid off.
Do we feel like this track issue is just endemic to the new Green Line extension, or should we just check all the tracks just to make sure there aren't any other issues?
That's a good question. So there is a system to check the width of the tracks that the T does use and deploys on all of its rail throughout the system. What we can tell so far from the information that's been shared is that this was really an issue that happened in the factory. So these rail ties arrived from the factory with the plates pre-installed, and they were put down and the rails were put on top of them. It's not actually something the MBTA was doing. It's something that a provider for the contractor for the MBTA was doing. And so it came out of the factory wrong, and now it's being fixed. There's no evidence yet that that factory has produced other rail ties for other parts of the MBTA system. So I don't think riders need to be worried about that at the moment.
How difficult will it be to get the contractors to make good on this? Because, you know, that could be a concern.
Yeah. So far, I think the T has been very clear about wanting the contractors to pay, and we don't know the cost estimate yet, but I would hope and expect that the contractors, the private third-party contractors, will live up to their commitments and live up to their contract and fix this. I think the greater problem here is we don't know what that disruption will be. It's a relatively easy fix in terms of taking the plate out, moving it out a little bit, and putting it back in. But you're doing that on an active rail line, and that's where the complication happens. So you can really only do that when the line is entirely shut down. It is shut down every night for 3 or 4 hours, but that doesn't give you much time to actually fix many of the ties. It will be faster and more effective for the MBTA to shut down the entire line for days or a week. That'll be faster at fixing it, but that'll be really frustrating for the commuters in Somerville and Medford who have planned their lives around this line being open and are now going to be back on shuttle buses instead.
Do you think, in your experience, as the MBTA looks to contract out for more projects, that they'll be maybe taking a second look at the way that they choose contractors to make sure something like this doesn't happen again?
Yeah, look, I think that's really important. What you want at the MBTA is you want a team of leaders and managers who are good at sort of separating the legitimate, strong contractors from the weaker ones, who are good at understanding how to get good value for taxpayer and fare payer dollars. That's the most essential thing in the construction management side of the MBTA. And again, it's obviously a place where the T needs to get better. Now, some of the managers, in fact, most of them who were leading this project inside the MBTA have since moved on to other jobs, other places, other agencies. So we've got a new crop here under General Manager Phil Eng. He seems to be trying to put the right people in place, and I think we have to give him the benefit of the doubt, but there's clearly a lot of work to do.
What do you make of this sort of back and forth where the Healey administration's like, it's not our fault, it's previous administrations? Like, is there a benefit to any of that kind of?
Yeah. I don't think that it does us much good to place blame, especially when most of these people have moved on. I do think it's interesting for the public and for the media to kind of dig in, and the Boston Globe has found some emails that show that this issue was reported to the head of the project. The head of the project, when he talked to Commonwealth Magazine, denied any knowledge of it. So there's a discrepancy there. And that kind of inside baseball is intriguing. At the end of the day, what we need to do is we need to instill a culture at the MBTA of more transparency and more openness, where this stuff is not swept under the rug, it's not hidden. And I do think that the Healey administration understands that. They're not perfect, they're getting better at it, but they are headed in the right direction.
Chris Dempsey, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Crystal.